Somewhere in Canada right now, there's a city where a one-bedroom apartment rents for under $800 a month, and the job market there is growing faster than Toronto's. Meanwhile, in the GTA, people are paying $2,300 to share a basement with a stranger. That gap is not a glitch, it's the new map of Canada. In 2026, the distance between the most expensive cities in this country and the cheapest ones has never been wider, and almost nobody is talking about the cheap side of that map, because it's not glamorous. No skyline, no subway, just rent you can actually afford and a paycheck that doesn't disappear the second it hits your account. So we built a list. 7 cities, real rent numbers, real job numbers, 2026 data only. Stick around, because the city that takes the #1 spot isn't some forgotten town in the middle of nowhere. It builds parts for wind farms shipped across North America and sits inside one of Quebec's biggest aerospace industrial parks. We'll get there. Let's count down. Before we rank anything, we need a fair way to compare a city in Quebec to a city in Alberta. Rent alone doesn't cut it. $900 a month means nothing if there are no jobs to pay it. So here's the rule we used for this list. Every city had to pass 2 tests, cheap rent and a job market that's actually moving in the right direction in 2026, hiring up, unemployment down, or both. We're calling that combination the shift score. Low rent on its own doesn't make the cut. A city only earns a spot on this list if both numbers work in your favor. One more thing before we start. Keep a mental note of the regions as we go, because by the time we hit #1, you'll notice this list isn't random. Almost the entire thing comes from just 3 parts of the country. That's not a coincidence, and we'll come back to it at the end. Quick favor before we get into the cities. If you're even thinking about relocating in 2026, hit subscribe now, because we're ranking a new Canadian city almost every week. And if this list is useful, tap like. It's the only thing that tells YouTube to actually show this to the people who need to see it. Okay, #7, Sherbrooke, Quebec. Sherbrooke is the quiet exit ramp out of Montreal's housing crisis. Living costs here run roughly 11% lower than Montreal, and rent specifically is about 40% lower, which means your local purchasing power, what your paycheck actually buys you, is over 35% higher than someone earning the same wage in Montreal. A one-bedroom here typically rents in the $700 to $900 range. That's not a typo, that's Sherbrooke. The job market leans on 2 anchors, education and healthcare, fed by 2 universities, Bishops and Université de Sherbrooke, which keep the city's population young and the local economy diversified instead of dependent on one industry that could collapse overnight. Shift score for Sherbrooke, low rent, stable institutional jobs. Good enough for #7, not good enough for the top half of this list. Let's move. #6, St. John, New Brunswick. St. John is a port city, and ports mean jobs that can't be outsourced. You can't ship a tanker to a call center in another country. Average one-bedroom rent sits around $1095, and here's the number that actually earns this city its spot. As of early 2026, St. John St. Stephen posted the lowest unemployment rate of any economic region in New Brunswick, while full-time jobs in the area grew over 4% in a single year. The economy runs on heavy industry, energy, refining, shipbuilding, work that pays trades wages, not retail wages. It's not a flashy city, it's a working city. And working cities in 2026 are starting to look like the smartest move on the board. #5, Regina, Saskatchewan. This one is the first real city on this list, a provincial capital with universities, hospitals, and a downtown that doesn't shut down at 6 p.m. Median rent landed around $1,400 in early 2026, higher than the first 2 entries, but look at what you get for it. Regina's employment was up 5.5% year over year, adding nearly 8,000 jobs, while Saskatchewan as a whole posted one of the lowest unemployment rates of any province in the country, consistently below the national average. And the province isn't coasting on old industries. A French renewable energy company just broke ground on a new solar facility outside the city that alone will create over 300 construction jobs. Government, agriculture, energy, and now renewables. Regina's economy isn't betting on one horse. That's 3 cities down. Quick gut check. The cheapest rent so far belongs to Sherbrooke. Hold on to that number because by the time we hit number 1, it's going to look expensive. Real quick, drop a comment and tell us which one of these you'd actually pack up and move to. We read every single one and it genuinely shapes which cities we cover next. All right, let's keep going. Number 4, Red Deer, Alberta. This one might be the most underrated city in the entire country right now. Red Deer's employment grew over 12% in a single year. That's not a typo either. That's the fastest job growth of any region on this list, while its unemployment rate dropped to roughly 4.6%, the lowest number we found anywhere in this video. Why? A $1.8 billion redevelopment of the Red Deer Regional Hospital is underway, plus major infrastructure projects across the city, on top of its existing base in energy and agriculture. And because it's Alberta, there's no provincial sales tax. Every dollar you earn stretches further than the same dollar in Ontario or Quebec. Rent here still runs well below the national average. Strong jobs, no sales tax, dropping unemployment. Red Deer is what good job market actually looks like on paper in 2026. Number 3, Moncton, New Brunswick. Moncton calls itself the hub city of Atlantic Canada, and the nickname checks out. It sits at the crossroads of every major highway and rail line east of Quebec, which has made it New Brunswick's transportation and logistics center. The job market here has cooled slightly through 2026 after a multi-year hiring boom, but don't let that scare you off. The region added thousands of jobs over the past 2 years. The bilingual workforce makes it attractive to companies serving all of Canada, and rent remains some of the lowest of any mid-sized city in the country, well under 4 figures for most one-bedrooms. It's not the hottest job market on this list anymore, but the math, what you pay versus what you can earn, still works heavily in your favor. Number 2, Winnipeg, Manitoba. Winnipeg is the size cutoff on this list. Over 750,000 people, a real big city with a small city price tag. 2-bedroom apartments here average somewhere between $1,100 and $1,300 in a city with an international airport, an NHL team, and a genuinely diverse economy spanning manufacturing, aerospace components, finance, and agriculture. Manitoba's employment has been quietly climbing through 2026, even while some bigger provinces stall out. If your deal breaker is, I need an actual city, not a town, Winnipeg is the cheapest place on this list that still feels like one. And number 1, Trois-Rivières, Quebec. And here it is. Remember the city we teased at the very start? The one building parts for wind farms shipped across the continent? This is it. Trois-Rivières was named the most affordable city in all of Quebec heading into 2026. A 1-bedroom apartment here typically rents from somewhere between $700 and $900 a month. A house, on average, costs around $270,000 to $380,000, less than a third of what the same home costs in Toronto. But here's why it doesn't just win on price. The city sits at the midpoint between Montreal and Quebec City, inside an industrial park built around its airport that's become a real hub for aerospace and advanced manufacturing. One local company alone, Marmont, manufactures massive wind turbine towers and employs around 1,000 people doing it. Add a university, a working port, and a downtown old enough to be a National Historic District, and you've got a city that's cheap because the math hasn't caught up to it yet, not because there's nothing there. One honest note, French is the working language for most jobs here, so this spot rewards people willing to use it. If that's you, Trois-Rivières is, dollar for dollar, the best deal on this entire list. So look back at the map with us for a second. 2 of these cities are in Atlantic Canada. 2 are in Quebec. 3 are spread across the prairies. That's the pattern we told you to watch for at the very beginning. And it's not random. These are the regions where population growth hasn't outrun housing supply yet, where the economy doesn't live or die on one overheated industry, and where a paycheck still buys you a life instead of just covering rent. Toronto and Vancouver aren't going anywhere, But in 2026, they're no longer where the best version of a Canadian life is actually being built. That's our list for 2026. 7 cities, real numbers, no fluff. If you're seriously weighing a move, treat these figures as a starting point and dig into the specific neighborhood before you sign anything, because rent shifts month to month. If this helped, subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and share this with the one person in your life who keeps complaining about rent but hasn't actually looked anywhere else. See you in the next one.